Germany is preparing for the unthinkable. Interior Minister Alexander Dobrindt has unveiled a multi-billion-euro push for shelters, hospital beds, and new emergency vehicles. Since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, Berlin has spent around 300 billion euros on its military, but critics warn the country is still not ready for war at home.
Wounded NATO soldiers arriving in Germany. These troops have been evacuated from the battlefield following an attack by Russian forces. This drill, held in March, was just an exercise. The aim, to ensure the military, aid organisations and civilian hospitals work in harmony in the event of war. It's important that we actually bring all entities on board. The joint drill with the emergency services, for example, is something we wanted to practice here, and it works really well. Now, the Interior Minister wants to take further steps to upgrade Germany's civil defence. Alexander Dobrindt's plans include a new civil defence command to coordinate planning, 110,000 additional field beds by 2029, civil defence training in schools, and an improved warning app to direct the public to shelters and relief centres. Civil protection must, of course, be expanded given the situation we currently face. Hybrid threats, including from Russia, are growing, and accordingly something must be done here, and that's exactly what is now being addressed. For decades, Germany's civil protection has focused on disasters, fires, floods, storms and power outages. In 2008, many bunkers were decommissioned. This one in the centre of Berlin now houses a private art collection. Amid warnings Russia could attack a NATO country by 2029, officials are reviewing bunker capacity. We cannot talk about and invest in defence capabilities while failing to adequately promote civil protection, and that is precisely the point. For that reason, I very much welcome this step. Opposition parties welcome the ambitions, but say that buying beds and a new app will be of limited help to the public at large.
DW's chief political correspondent, Nina Haase, told me why Germany is announcing this kind of civil defence push right now.
Well, Terry, this is very much part of Europe's broader security shift since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022, so 4 years ago. And the German government says that it wants to prepare for war or other crises, and they want to respond to what they call hybrid threats. So not just military conflict, also cyber attacks, blackouts or large-scale disasters. And at the same time, officials do acknowledge that Germany has run down parts of its civil protection system for decades. So this is also about catching up. Just here, for example, in the German capital, we don't have any functioning sirens that would ring the alarm so that everybody would hear it. So in short, it's both a geopolitical response and an attempt to fix long-standing domestic gaps.
So what exactly is being planned then, Nina, and how big is it?
Well, the scale is significant, and according to the draft plans that we saw, the government is looking at around 10 billion euros by 2029 to strengthen civil protection. And that does include, as we saw in the report, about 1,000 specialised vehicles, roughly 110,000 field beds, and investment in equipment, infrastructure and personnel. And what's also important, it doesn't come across as quite so fascinating, but there are also structural reforms, and in this country this is highly significant. So they are setting up a new central command for civil defence and expanded medical response units, better coordination with the military. All of that is terribly complicated in this federal system that we've got, where the 16 German regions have a lot of authority over those issues when it comes to protecting civilians. So it's not just stockpiling gear, it's an attempt to rebuild the system.
Would you describe this, Nina, as Germany quietly preparing for a potential war scenario?
Unlike other countries, just take Sweden, for example, where they've got a leaflet that they hand out to their population to prepare for disaster scenarios. They say the times are getting more dangerous, so please, Swedish population, be prepared. Don't panic, but just know what you would have to do. This is something that we're not quite seeing yet. Here, it's still framed very broadly, covering everything from natural disasters to terrorist attacks and infrastructure failures, but the security backdrop backdrop is, of course, clear. And policymakers and regional ministers have warned that Europe faces a more dangerous environment, including the possibility of military escalation. And the emphasis on linking civil and military structures does show that this is also about resilience in a worst-case scenario. So while not explicitly about Russia, it is very much shaped by that reality.
Germany has struggled with crisis management in the past. Can it actually deliver on these plans, Nina?
That is the key question, and experts do broadly agree that the investment is overdue. In fact, Minister Pistorius, so the defence minister himself, before taking on this position, he was interior minister in one of those German states, and he said that 4 years ago, as interior minister, he already said that 10 billion euros do need to be invested in infrastructure, in civilian protection. So it's long overdue, but they do warn that structural problems remain, especially the coordination between federal, state and local levels.
All of this, of course, costs a lot of money. How will Germany pay for all this, Nina?
The current plan is a federal program that would run over several years, but the details are not fully settled. I believe that we're going to see a couple of more details this Wednesday when the cabinet meets, but there's already debate about budget constraints and about how the costs will be shared with the federal states, which are responsible for much of the disaster response. So very much the central government in Berlin saying we do need to do more, and then the region saying, OK, are you going to give us some money? That is going to be a tricky question. So according to some estimates, some people are saying that the true long-term costs could be significantly higher and potentially well beyond this initial package.
OK, this is really just a plan at this point. It still has to get approval. What difference will all this make, assuming it does get approved? What difference will it make for ordinary people here in Germany?
Well, it will mean a faster emergency response, more available shelter capacity, better public warning systems in a crisis, but this is a long-term effort. So the benefits won't be immediate, and the broader goal is to make society more resilient so that in a major emergency, few people are left without help, information, protection, so that people actually know what to do, because very few people do in Germany, astonishingly. So in a way, this is also a contribution to changing Germany's mindset.
So when could these proposals get approved? What sort of hurdles still have to be cleared in order for this to become law?
Well, the cabinet is probably going to present these plans this Wednesday, and depending on whether or not this requires certain laws to be changed, some of it will have to go through Bundestag, and other things can essentially be negotiated between the federal state and the regions. But as I said, even interior ministers from the regions a couple of years ago said that if there is money there to invest in military infrastructure and to buy new weapons, then there should be money there as well to help keep the population safe.
Nina, thank you very much. Our chief political correspondent, Nina Haase.